is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's flat. He throws. It is.
Hello and welcome to the first Past Star Prime show of 1976, the bicentennial year. Thanks for joining us here in 2026. I'm Scott Johnston, and Bill Mahoney and Mark Hoffman are with me. Hey guys, year 3 of the podcast. Can you believe it?
No,
because it seemed like yesterday we were starting with Ed White.
And that's when we wanted to do 2 guests a show.
Oh my, remember those days? We had to, okay, we got to get 2 of them. And then we thought, we're doing 1.
Yeah. I mean, we're still going an hour and a half with 1. So
yeah.
We start the year off talking football on the cover of the January 5th, 1976 issue of SI, the Dallas Cowboys, Preston Pearson, as the boys from Big D pull off a miracle and beat the Vikings in the playoffs. Mark and Bill, Preston will be joining us shortly to talk about this incredible win in Minnesota. A 14-year NFL veteran, Pearson, a big part of those Cowboys' success, played there for 6 years. All I remember is as a kid, he'd come in and I'd be like, could you just cover him? They're going to throw him the ball on third down.
well, we all talked today about the third down back. That's a specialty in football. Players are known because they're third down backs. They can catch the ball out of the backfield. He was the prototype of that, and even though he'd play on first and second down, he was the guy that you wanted it on third down. And he had almost as much receiving yards as he had rushing yards. I think he had just under 4,000 rushing yards in his career and over 3,000 passing yards in his career. So he was a dual threat. And, next week's issue, when we talk about the Cowboys playing the Rams in the NFC Championship game, he had 3 touchdowns in that game, and he had 1 catch that, to me, was one of the greatest catches I've ever seen.
Yeah, incredibly athletic, no question about that. All right, scorecard and big news in baseball all started off basically free agency. That's what we're talking about here. Arbiter Peter Seitz ruled that Andy Messersmith and Dave McNally were free agents, and baseball's owners are freaking out. They fired the arbiter and ran to the courts. His decisions basically challenge the old rule that teams can keep a player forever. Mm-hmm. Owners are panicking, but they really need to face reality that the other sports have already updated their contracts, and baseball needed to as well. So they were expecting that there would be a long lockout. Players and owners, they were hoping to work something out before spring training. Otherwise, there could be a strike. There was a lockout for a couple of weeks, but no regular season games were lost. But I would say this decision here 50 years ago, more than probably anything, changed the face of baseball. And once they let the cat out of the bag, and I'm not saying that the players shouldn't get paid, but it just changed the landscape of the game more than anything.
How many players do you think right now, if you mention the name Andy Messersmith, knows who that is?
Oh, man.
2%? Nowadays players, none, I would say.
Or Dave McNally.
None. Yeah, or Dave, none. None, but those guys truly busted that door down.
Or Peter Seitz.
Or Peter Seitz. Yeah, Kirk
he's the
Flood
arbiter that
throw in there too.
He's the one that made it a 2-1 vote. If he votes the other way, God knows what happens.
Yeah.
But what was really interesting is, because they could just renew your contract year by year at the same rate. But, so he does this and that opens the door. But I don't think it was until, I don't know if it was before the 76 season or after the 76 season where they officially established the free agency, allowing them to test the market. I think at that time, if you played 6 years in the majors, you can then declare for free agency.
Well, I'm not saying it was a bad decision, but it certainly changed everything. We are 2 weeks into winter. So, Mark, tell us about Tex Winter.
That was a really good segue there. So Tex Winter was at that time the basketball coach in Northwestern, okay? And he was against the increase in physical play in college basketball. He didn't like the no harm, no foul officiating. He said that UCLA gets away with that full court press. A past guest on our show, Indiana's Kent Benson, would do the same thing. He really thinks that the game basketball should be a game of finesse, not brute force. But if Tex Winter's name sounds familiar, he would eventually hook up with the Chicago Bulls. He was the person in the inventor of the triangle offense that Phil Jackson used, that helped the Bulls win all those NBA titles, and then he carried it over to the Lakers. And Tex was an assistant coach with the Lakers as well. So, his career is just starting.
Yeah. Yep. Synonymous with those Bulls teams for sure.
Right. And he's not a young man in this article, but it's just, starting basically.
Billy, I spent 17 years in Boston, and the last year when we moved back home to Pasadena, my wife said, I'm done with winters. And I was like, all right, I'm okay not shoveling anymore. So I felt like this next thing you're going to talk about, that they were kind of directing it right at me.
Or people that aren't in shape and you're in good shapes. That's not you. But Paul Lesak, or Lesick, however you want to put it, he's a doctor. He's director of cardiac prevention and rehabilitation at Rutgers. He says only 4% of middle-aged men and women are physically fit. So he says you should not be shoveling snow. Even those up to the job, if you can do it, should be warm up first by jogging in place or doing a few calisthenics before picking up the shovel. That'll get your heart muscles pumping blood in preparation for the exertion of work. The heart area should be protected also with warm clothes, since cold weather constricts the arteries at a time when the shoveler's body most needs a full and increased supply of blood. Basically what it's saying, if you're not in good shape, get the kids to shovel snow.
Oh my God, this explains it all. I have a picture of me and Big Bear in like December of 2015 shoveling snow. I spent like 2 hours, 3 hours in the morning just clearing out the driveway. And then a few months later, I have surgery and have 4 stents put on my heart. Wow. So maybe I didn't do my stretching. Maybe that was the problem. If I had stretched, I'd been okay.
That is, it's not easy. It's one thing if you get like, a little dusting or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
You get a foot of snow.
How tough is that?
And you've got to clear, the whole sidewalk and your driveway. So in 2013, we had more snow in Boston in a 3-week stretch than the city of Chicago has ever had in an entire winter. That's how much snow we had. We had 3 blizzards in 18 days. We had 13 feet of snow. And, you had to shovel basically every day. And there's nowhere to put it after a while. And you got to remember, like the first day, you're like, okay, I got to shovel it, but I only have to lift it like to my knee. Well, after 2 weeks of that, you got to lift it over your head. There's nowhere to put the snow anymore to clear a path. Oh, it's brutal.
Did you ever get winded or get knocked out or anything like that doing that?
No, not knocked out, but you go out there for an hour and you're like, all right, I need to take a break. I mean, you can't go anywhere anyway. The streets are just, completely right after the blizzard comes. So you just go back inside and rest up for a little bit, and then you go back out again. The problem is if you wait an hour and it's still snowing, all the work you did, you're like, all right, I got to clear that path I just cleared first and then get back to it. But yeah, it's not fun. It's not, you see all these Christmas movies of the snow and it's so pretty and people are dressed like, in maybe they have a slight little coat on. It's freaking freezing. The wind's blowing. It's ice everywhere. You're falling on your ass. It's not that nice. All right. I said it. Yes, I did. Now let's talk about they said it.
Back when quotes were bold, they said it. Back when quotes were bold, they said it.
Johnny Moore, Billy.
You got it. He's a 17-year-old freshman starting guard on the University of Texas basketball. He said his only goal right now is to win. Well, that and maybe start to shave. Mark
And what
loves
team did he
himself some
play
Johnny
with?
Moore, though.
Say again?
Mark loves himself some Johnny Moore.
That's right, because his future was in the ABA. He played for the Spurs. He was their point guard for so many years. He was actually drafted by the Sonics, but he played from the Spurs in the '80s, like from '80 to '87, and then in '89 and '90 he came back to the Spurs. So
Yeah.
he's one of my one of my favorite Spurs. I think he wore 00.
He's a good player. Good player. I got one. Bill Veck asked what percentage of the Chicago White Sox he owns. He said, that's nobody's business, if you forgive me for saying so. And if you won't forgive me, it's still nobody's business.
Now get that midget to go bat now, okay?
Right.
And wear those shorts really well. I want to see those thighs.
Nah, we got the opposite of a little guy to finish us off here, Mark.
Yes, Bill Russell, not the former Dodger player and manager, but the legendary basketball player, the Celtic great. And he was a celebrity when he retired. He did commercials and appeared on shows, and he did a commercial for the telephone company where he makes a shot that he was supposed to miss, and his reaction's priceless. But he was a big spokesman for them. So he was asked, so how much are you getting paid for doing those phone ads? And he said, he can't tell you how much he's making, but he winkingly said, look for a rate hike.
And if you guys recall, we touched on that commercial earlier, and I forget the circumstances, but that was the one that inspired my dad to write a letter to Sports Illustrated that I found in an issue last year that was from William Johnston in Oakland, California. It had to do with the other guy in that commercial. I forget what his name was, but that
was an awesome one because I had no idea that was happening when you mentioned it. That was so great.
Yeah, that was cool. In on a wing and a prayer. In the final seconds, Roger Staubach launched a desperate deep pass that Drew Pearson caught after defender Nate Wright slipped, giving Dallas a stunning win over Minnesota and the advent of the Hail Mary, a playoff win for the Cowboys. And this is one of those that I don't really remember it, but I kind of think I remember it because it's been played over and over for so many years. But Mark, I'm sure you remember it.
I remember it exactly. Let's see. I was 16 years old. It was winter break. I was in Palm Springs with my friend Mark Borson. We were watching the game on TV, and I was so sure the Cowboys were going to lose, but I stood there and I stayed and I watched it. I didn't chicken out. And then when I saw the pass completion, the first one was a long completion on 4th and 17 to Pearson, who tiptoed the sideline. But then on second down from midfield, he threw that pass, and it looked like Pearson had pushed off at the receiver or the defensive back, and it looked like there was a flag on the play for offensive pass interference. So my initial reaction was, oh, that's coming back. But it wasn't a flag, it was an orange that got thrown on the field. So it looked like a flag. Even the Viking players were saying, hey, that's PI, but they didn't call it. He caught the ball in his hip. He walked back into the end zone. Cowboys won that game and would eventually get to their Super Bowl.
Vikings coach Bud Grant summed up their frustration saying Pearson did the right thing pushing off. He had nothing to lose. So sounds to me like Coach Grant did not agree with the no call as well. There was another Pearson that was a key player for that Cowboys team, Preston Pearson, the cover man for the January 5th, 1976 issue of Sports Illustrated. This was truly one of the more improbable seasons in Cowboys history, and much of it had to do with the development of Preston Pearson as a weapon and the 14-year NFL veteran with over 10,000 career total yards and 2 Super Bowl rings joins us now on the Past Our Prime podcast. Hey, Preston, you look great. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. It's been a while.
Hey, Preston, let's get right to it. You're on the cover of SI back when Sports Illustrated was the talk of the sports land.
How about
Were you
that?
surprised to see number 26 Pearson on the cover? And how cool was that for you?
Oh, yes. It was a total surprise to me and 50 million other people around the world, including primarily all of the Cowboy fans. Now, I'm even when I saw it for the first time, I'm going, they got the wrong Pearson. And the reason why you think that is because of one play. One play. It was called, as we all know it now, as Hail Mary. But you know what? I had to go back and look at this myself and think about it myself. I had a pretty good game.
Yeah.
I caught some very important passes, gained some pretty good yardage, did some very good blocking. In fact, the running back position at that time against a pretty darn good Vikings defense did quite well. I think collectively we gained over 100 yards that day. And I was a leading ground gainer, or amongst them, along with Robert Newhouse. And I believe I was the leading pass receiver. Hail Mary is primarily, when people think about it, it's Drew Pearson and Roger Staubach. But you know what? There was 10 other guys on the field that day. And we, as a collective team, we made that play work. The most important play, however, was not just Hail Mary. It could have been that fourth down play where I think Drew caught maybe 3 or 4 passes the entire day. And I believe he caught 3 in the fourth quarter, including the Hail Mary pass.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a sec because a lot leads up to, you never win a game. You can lose a game on one play, but you rarely win a game on one play.
Exactly. That's right.
But
That's why it's such an important play today. It's one play and it stands out for all Cowboy fans.
you arrived in Dallas that year after being released by the Steelers. So going into the 75 season, expectations weren't that high for the Cowboys. And after they missed the playoffs in 74, what was the mindset of the locker room when training camp opened in 75?
Well, we had lost quite a few guys in what was that, 73 going into 74, including the great Bob Lilly and I believe Walt Garrison. And if you remember, the Cowboys had an extremely important draft, one of the best in the history of the team, let alone in the league. And we like to call it the Dirty Dozen. I like to call it the Baker's Dozen, because I was a part of that group that came in as the Cowboys' first, quote, free agent. And here's one caveat that people don't remember. I came in here and the Cowboys signed me for a guy that went on and had a pretty good career, Jim Zorn.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Zorn was cut and caught on with the Seattle Seahawks and became a pretty darn good quarterback. So a lot of people don't know that, but I was certainly appreciative of the fact that I came to a team that didn't know a whole lot about at the time. And that includes Staubach and Bob Lilly and their history of not being able to get the final entry into the Super Bowl sweepstakes and all of that. But for me, it was a gigantic opportunity. And I felt like with the young guys that they had at the running back position, I had an opportunity. And they were all very young, headed up by Robert Newhouse, Doug Dennison, and there's another name that people don't recognize today, but Doug Dennison, a running back that was from a little small town, Kuhnstown State, I think it was. Uh, he was a very important part of our team process, and certainly a big part of the running back position. Dorsett wasn't here. A lot of people like to think that Tony Dorsett was a part of our team back there in 75. He was not here yet. So we had to pull together. If there was ever a team in any kind of sport that's team oriented, where you can say they had to rely on each other and they had to be a team, that was it. That was that year. That was that team. Randy White came in as the number one draft choice that year, along with Thomas Henderson that year. Pat Donovan was part of that group. Um, on and on and on. That Dirty Dozen group of rookies that came in, they were so important throughout the course of the year, let alone in that game against the Vikings. And I think I was the guy that got us over the top. No, that's me talking. That's I'd like to think so. And I think, overall, my story and my background and the success I had in that game was part of the reason that Sports Illustrated put me on the cover. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, or has anything to do with the thinking of Sports Illustrated, but they had to get something out, I believe, to get somebody on the cover of Sports Illustrated, primarily right after that game was over, right? So they may have gotten the Pearsons mixed up.
Yeah. Well, it probably didn't hurt that you're about 5 feet off the ground making the catch.
There you go.
Cover. So give you some props there.
Yes, sir. That's my basketball background coming into play. And if you guys remember, I'm the guy that blocked Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's skyhook in college in my senior year. That's part of the reason why I got drafted by the Baltimore Colts and Don Shula back in 1967, because I was an athlete. And if you recall again, the Dallas Cowboys, they're one of those organizations that went out and got a lot of different athletes. Bob Hayes was not only a football player, but he was a track star. Pete Gent, basketball player. Several guys that the Cowboys had on their rosters throughout the years were athletes. I think I was one of those guys. And I found out later on that the Cowboys were looking at me from that game in Chicago where I blocked Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's skyhook. Just think about that for a second. Think about that. A guy that's 6'2", blocking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's skyhook. And, Kareem was already 7 foot, but that skyhook gets to its height. That's got to be what, 10, 11 foot?
Mm-hmm.
So the guy that's blocking that thing at 6'2", you got to have some athleticism. You got to have some hops. You got to have some ability about you. So that's how I got drafted and eventually got to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, so I was going to mention, so at Illinois, you're not on a football scholarship, you're on a basketball scholarship. And from what I understand, it's a partial scholarship. So didn't you have to work jobs just to support yourself? And
absolutely.
Did that help you I guess, persevere and become the athlete that you were?
No question about it. You hit the nail right on the head there. I sold programs at the football games. I worked in the cafeteria when school was not in session. I worked at the my hometown local park, doing some things there. Always trying to find ways to put a few coins in my pocket. This was not the era of the NIL. Or guys are making $50,000-$60,000 just to show up. I mean, come on. Barry. By the way, Barry Switzer likes to call this new concept, the NIL, as the now it's legal. And you know what? He's probably right.
Yep.
Because all of those teams on every level, whether it's football, basketball, whatever, they were paying people. They had to keep them around, but they now have it, and it's, as he put it, now it's legal. But I was one of those guys that, I saw where many of the athletes, and the University of Illinois, we were the first to have the death penalty placed on us. Think about that. Everybody seems to think that it was SMU. No, it was the University of Illinois. Why? because they were paying guys under the table, giving them money in the off season when they were not in season, and giving them coins to go grab something to eat. I mean, come on. Hey, I'm still pissed off that I wasn't a part of that group. I wasn't given a couple of $100 to live off of. Hey, I can remember many a day when I went hungry. I needed to have a quarter here and there just to get something to eat. Our basketball practices lasted past our cafeteria time. The cafeterias are only open for a certain period of time, right? So our basketball practices lasted so long that I couldn't get to the cafeteria to get something to eat.
Mm.
So that's why you had so many problems with um, players and alumni under the table activities going on, because a lot of things were happening that players couldn't get a little extra here and there, or get enough to find something to eat, or travel home for Christmas. All of those things was happening back then. The NIL has really trumped up a lot of that, so that many players. It's still a little bit unfair, the NIL, because only the big guys, or the so-called important guys, get those kinds of deals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, usually it's the quarterbacks, receivers, big time offensive linemen, defensive linemen. It's still unfair.
So you're a basketball player, but you get drafted by the Colts as a defensive back, and then
Yeah.
you eventually get moved to running back. So you're with the Colts, you're with the Steelers, you come to the Cowboys in '75. And I remember you open the exhibition season against the Rams and get blown out.
Yeah.
A month later, you open the season against the Rams in Dallas, and everyone thinks it's going to be the same thing. But Tom Landry unveils this new, or brings back this new formation, the shotgun, that hadn't
Yeah.
been used in decades. Tell me what that was like when all of a sudden coach says, "Hey, we're going to be running the shotgun this year," and how it helped you or helped the team.
Well, I think for me, the first thing I did was something like this. What are we doing? What? Huh? Nobody really had heard of it in our age group. But I'm telling you, this man, Tom Landry, was one of the most hardworking, most religious, family oriented coaches from that arena that you'll ever hear about. I mean, it's far from the kind of typical kind of fiery head coach that you hear about or see or talked about. You know, Tom Landry, if he said anything curse word wise, it was like darn or hell or something like that. Never heard not one curse word out of Coach Landry. His motto was faith, family, and football, in that order. That's important. In that order: faith, family, and football. But the guy was a workaholic. At meetings that we had prior, or at practices where we had our meetings to start the day, Tom Landry, more often than not, was the last person to come into the room. Why? Because he was just finishing up his work to present to us. Watched a heck of a lot of film, did a heck of a lot of mental work preparing his team, both offensively and defensively, for not only his players, but for his coaches as well. Remember, he's the guy who designed that flex defense. So he was not only a defensive guy, but he was the offensive play caller. Wow, tough position, but he handled it extremely well.
Tell me, Preston, about your personal relationship with Coach Landry, because he seemed like he was able to unlock things in you that other teams maybe weren't able to.
Well, it wasn't close. Not too many players outside of the quarterbacks were that close to Coach Landry. Now there were several guys, Leroy Jordan, I believe, and Bob Bruni. I'm not sure when it comes to players like Bob Lilly because I never played with him, so I don't know that relationship. But for me, I wasn't that particular kind of guy to get that close to a coach or any of the coaches, even Coach Dan Reeves, who was the running backs coach at the time. I didn't get close to him. I always felt that there had to be some kind of partition between a coach and a player because I always felt that you had to be a disciplinarian, a father figure, a teacher. All of those things had to come into play. And if you get too close, you can't be that disciplinarian. You just can't. It doesn't work. But if you maintain a certain partition uh, between your position as coach and me as a player, I think you can handle that and handle it well. So I didn't pursue going into trying to establish a relationship with any of the coaches, let alone with the head coach.
So then tell me about the guy that you might have had a better relationship with, which was Roger Staubach. What made him special as a leader, and what kind of person was he?
Oh boy, to describe Roger is difficult because he was all of what you just said. Remember, he was a naval uh, uh, participant. He had that same kind of trait or traits that Coach Landry had: faith, family, football, hardworking guy, family guy to no end. Uh, will give you his shirt off his back. First thing he did with me when I came down was he invited me over to dinner. And I'll remember this very well. My first Thanksgiving down here, he invited me over for Thanksgiving dinner. How many people, let alone your quarterback position, would do that? But he invited me over to have dinner, Thanksgiving Day dinner at his home. Wow. To me, that was awesome. And I will always respect Roger Staubach for that alone. But his ability was off the charts, very, very, very competitive, did not want to lose at anything, would throw you the football today if he had one. He'd try to throw you, go out, press. Well, he and Drew still do that whenever they get together. No, not here. I'm not going to be doing that kind of thing. When I retired, that was the end of the football thing for me. No, no, no more. But Roger's a special kind of guy. He's he during his football time as a player, he was also in his own time doing work with a local real estate company, learning that business while he was playing professional football and performing at a high level. He sold his real estate company. I've forgotten the exact name of the real estate company, but he sold it for a couple hundred million.
Good work if you can get it.
Yes.
Good work if you can get it and work towards getting there. That's the part that's so impressive. He worked to get to that position. He's a good man, put it that way.
We are talking with Preston Pearson, who is on the cover of the January 5th, 1976 cover of Sports Illustrated. So let's talk a little bit about that game in particular. You mentioned the two big plays at the end, but before you get there, you get the ball back, you're down 14-10, under 2 minutes to play, and you're having a hard time. You're in the shotgun, and you're having a hard time even snapping the ball to
Yeah.
Roger. So he's He's forced to recover a couple of bad snaps, and now you're staring at a 4th and 17 from your own 25. Tell us about that play.
Well, that play is the one that I remember most. Most people remember Hail Mary, which, there's no question about that. That Hail Mary was a outstanding, memorable play. But for players, that's 4th and 17 is the play that made us become what we became, America's team. By the way, America's team, that moniker started that year, 1975. That was a huge, monstrous year for the Dallas Cowboys organization. Doesn't go back to those Super Bowls that they won, 71, I believe it was, et cetera. But 1975 with that group. But that 4th and 17 was a play where Roger's going to go, or Tom wants Roger to go to our best wide receiver. Remember this too. That 4th and 17, it was controversial play because to me, as a player, I thought he was out of bounds when he caught it. The officials ruled him in. I'm not sure if that play shouldn't have been reviewed. They didn't do that back then, right? But the defensive player also caught him in the air, okay, as he was coming out in bounds, and then I believe pushed him out of bounds. So at that time, the rule was something like this, that if the player was pushed out of bounds, certainly while in the air, if he's in bounds, that's a reception. I believe that was the ruling that they came up with at that time. And also remember this too. On that 4th down play, as Drew was on the ground, one of the officials, I'm not sure exactly what you would call him. He was not one of the officials on the play or on the field, but he was a sideline official, I guess, keeping the players away from the sideline in order. One of those guys came over to the sideline who was near that play, and he kicked at Drew. I don't think he hit him, but he kicked at him. To this day, Drew went back to Minnesota, to that guy's home. They met and talked about that. The first question out of Drew's mouth, as I understand it, was, "Why did you kick me?"
No.
Of course, the answer was, "I'm a Viking fan." That was a 4th and 17. Are you crazy? But yeah, lots of things went on during this game.
So I remember the sideline pass. I remember Pearson making the catch on the sideline. The next play up, I remember it was actually an incomplete pass. He did a check down throw. And I don't know if it was to you or to Robert, but it was a check down throw. So the Hail Mary occurs on 2nd down. And when the play is happening, I remember, I think that may be when the orange got thrown on the field because it almost looked like a penalty flag got thrown.
Yes.
There was no penalty flag.
That's
Explain
correct.
what you could see from your perspective as that play unfolded with Drew.
Well, as the play unfolded, being on the field out there, I was just concerned about Rodgers' safety and being able to get the ball off. Now, remember, on the other side of the ball, there were some Hall of Fame players out there. Eller, Marshall, Alan Page, they were a headache all day long. I don't mean to leave out the other defensive tackle, what was his name? Sutherland. He was a headache as well. But those guys were difficult, and they too knew what was going on. If they stopped this last play, game's over, right? Mm-hmm. So we know that too. So we have got to do our utmost thing to be able to at least let Roger get this thing off. I don't know. I don't remember the exact call, but I don't remember if Drew was the primary receiver on that or not. More than likely, like I said earlier, Tom's going to go to his best player. I mean, every sport does that. When you need something very badly, even in basketball, you go to your best player. Hockey, you go to your best player to possibly get a score or stop something. So Drew did what he's supposed to do. Try to ward off the guy as much as possible. I've been asked this question a million times. Did he push off? Hell, I don't know. I don't know. But whatever he did was the best thing for us.
The answer is doesn't matter.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, because my
It doesn't
initial
matter.
reaction was that was a flag and they were going to call Drew for offensive interference, but
Yeah.
it was no flag and the play stand. But I'm really curious because a player can go through their whole career and not see a play like that, not see a Hail Mary like that. But you witnessed two of them, not only the Drew Pearson Hail Mary, but weren't you there for the immaculate reception that Franco Harris made to beat the Raiders?
I was there.
And I'm curious, how do those two miracles, compare to you? Are they on equal footing? Was one better than the other?
Oh, wow. Nobody's ever asked me that question. You're the number one guy on that one. Of course, Franco, good friend, excellent running back. Frenchie Fuqua was the key guy in all of that as a running back on the immaculate reception where that ball bounced off of his shoulder pad, I believe. One of the things I think that people don't know about is I think the reason the ball bounced off of Frenchie's shoulder is that he was trying to really get down. And the reason he was trying to get down is because the Raiders had two guys in their defensive backfield that were noted for hitting guys in the head. George Atkinson, I believe George has passed away, and I can't recall right off the top of my head the other individual in that game who was a safety. They were both headhunters, legal headhunters.
Tatum and Atkinson.
Jack Tatum, there you go. And that ball should have been caught by Frenchie, but I think he was just trying to protect himself, catch the ball at the same time, and get down. Because those two guys, as I said, were headhunters, and he was going to get walloped. He may have gotten walloped anyway, but as it bounced off of Franco's or off of Frenchie's shoulder, Franco fortunately had followed the play and was in perfect position to catch this ball and then turn on the Jets to get there. Now, remember this too. Franco Harris is a pretty big guy, 230, 235, something like that at his most. But he turned on the Jets, turned that corner in some bad footing and got that ball in the end zone. That's the other thing that people don't remember a whole lot about Franco. Franco was very, very quick, fast once he got started. But that play, I'll never forget that in Pittsburgh. I was unfortunately, on the sideline. Frenchie and I kind of traded positions based upon certain calls by either Bradshaw or by Chuck Noll. And I was on the sideline. So I saw all of it. I saw Franco catching that ball. And of course, everybody was elated by the simple fact that he was running down the sideline very close to us and into the end zone. And then, of course, the Steeler fans went nuts and we won that game. The Hail Mary has to be the number one for me, only because we were in foreign territory. We were way behind, not only on the scoreboard, but physically. They had been beating us up pretty good. Like I said, that defensive front for the Vikings, L.R. Marshall and Sutherland and Alan Page. It kind of handled us. And believe me, we had a couple of Hall of Fame guys on our offensive line. Rayfield Wright in particular had a tough time with Carl Eller that day. But Rayfield, awesome offensive tackle for us. Blaine Nye was there, and a young fella that was part of the Dirty Dozen. Burton Lawless was at his prime out of Florida, and Ralph Neely, we called him Dirty back then. He held his own against some pretty darn good players in Jim Marshall and Alan Page. But the Hail Mary was so dramatic because of all of the things that had happened to us during the game. The fourth down play, the orange, and then one of the officials gets hit in the head by a bottle, I believe it was. We could not believe that. That's the one that kind of puts fear in your heart when you see an official gets hit in the head by a bottle. You know what you do as a player? You buckle your chin strap on a little bit tighter because it gets scary at that point in time. But I think for me, the Hail Mary would be one. And of course, the Immaculate Reception would be 1A. Two tremendous plays. Nobody else in the world can claim having been in both those games but me. No one.
And on the right side of both of them.
Exactly.
Yes.
There you go.
What was it like? You get the Hail Mary, the game's over. What was it like in that locker room? Was it surprise? Was it what was it?
Well, listen, if you could put a bowl on the table and you put all of those accolades in there, it's all of that. It's all of that. First of all, you're surprised that you're there as the first wild card team to be there with 12, 13 rookies on your team. Nobody expected us to be there. You've got all of these potential Hall of Famers on the other side, including Fran Tarkington. That's another area too, guys, that I was a little surprised at Fran's approach, I guess. But I wasn't surprised at Fran's approach because that was a dagger. That Hail Mary was a dagger to their team who had been playing pretty darn well throughout the course of the game. And here's another caveat, too, with regard to Fran Tarkington. His father passed away right after that game. Now, I don't know any details about what happened. Did he pass away because of the game? Was there something else going on? I know no details about that. But that was a double blow, a double whammy for Fran Tarkington. And my sympathies went out to he and his family when I found out about that, obviously later on. Had to be a tough situation for him and also for the Viking players. Hey, I've been there. I've been in losses. I was in Super Bowl III with the Baltimore Colts against a team that we were supposed to handle and beat up and win a Super Bowl. And the New York Jets and Joe Namath somehow beat us. I've been there. I know what it's like to lose in high level games. I've been there. So I can identify with how the players felt after that game. Fran was in a different kind of mode to the officials. When that orange came out and the bottle came down, and we finally got back to playing that game, Fran was hot, and he was hot towards the officials. In fact, I believe he got a 15-yard penalty called against him for his words towards the officials. That was not representative, I don't think, of Fran Tarkington. But hey, listen, when you get a dagger thrown at you and plummets into your heart, you might do those things. You might say those things. So it was a tough situation for him. But we, as a team, elation, disbelief, we were going on to play the conference champions from the other division in the LA Rams in California after that. And guess who had a great game there?
You want to tell us?
Hello. That was my best game ever, in fact, out there. I had 3 touchdowns in that game and did some other good things on the ground. So, that stretch of games for me was the greatest in my 14 years in the game.
Yeah, that's what I was going to touch on. It's like a lot of times guys put on that cowboy uniform and it changes their life. Did this game against the Vikings, as part of the Cowboys, change your life? Make you more popular? What was it about it that changed for you?
Well, that's a good question. I don't really think it changed my life because even to this day, not many people realize or recognize that I was the Pearson that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Most Cowboy fans talk about one play and one play only. Hail Mary. Even though I was on the field. I was not Drew Pearson. I was not Roger Staubach, which is fair. I mean, that's fair. That's okay. But in my heart, and those who know me, they know what I did. They know how important I was during that game, especially coming from Pittsburgh after being cut by Chuck Noll, coming down here and making the Dallas Cowboys a viable team. I heard Mel Blount, who was one of the greatest cornerbacks ever, say to someone in Pittsburgh on some broadcast channel that he said to them, Preston, that's me, is the one who made them and allowed them to get into to that game, the Super Bowl against them. And that's when we were getting ready to go down and play the Steelers, which is another milestone for me. In the Super Bowl, what was that? Super Bowl 12, I guess?
10. Super Bowl 10.
10. And we didn't win that game as the Cowboys, but I wanted to win that one so badly. But it didn't happen. But I will never forget Mel Blount's words when he made that statement. So appreciate that.
And we have a trivia segment on the show where I'm going to give you a 50% chance to get a trivia question right. And I'm going to ask you about Super Bowl 10 in that trivia question. But just real quick, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned your 3-touchdown game against the Rams in the NFC title game that following week that got you into that Super Bowl. To me, the catch you made in that end zone where you're like Superman and you're literally flying parallel to the ground, is that to you one of the greatest catches that you've made in your career?
Yes, sir. That's it. That's it. I've made a few others, and I always tease Roger, if you just throw it a little bit better, I wouldn't have to be diving all over the place to catch them. But that particular one, there are certain situations and circumstances that players of all generations remember most. And for me, it's that play because of this. The ball just kind of stood still for me when I was in the air. It just kind of stood. I could read Pete Rozelle's name on the side of that ball. Okay. It just kind of stood still for me, and I can see myself in slow motion reaching out and catching that ball in my fingers, not my tips, but in my fingers, and just kind of pulling it in as I knew I was going to hit the ground. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that ball hit the ground. It was not a catch. That's not true. That's not true, especially in today's vernacular. It might. The official was standing right there. If you check out the film, the official was standing, I don't know, 5 foot, 10 foot away from me. So he could see what was going on, even though my back was kind of towards him. I did make that catch, and it was the greatest catch for me in my 14-year career. And I have to say, it's up there with a lot of catches that anybody's made in the entire NFL. Now, there have been a lot of good ones, especially one-handers that have been made over the years since, but that one rivals a whole bunch of them. I'll say that one.
It's trivia time. Past our prime, but still in our prime.
So here's your trivia question.
Questions
There was a movie that
like
came
a
out called Black
tumbleweed.
Sunday about a terrorist plot at the Super Bowl
Yeah.
with Robert Shaw and Bruce Dern. True or false? The movie, they actually shot the movie at Super Bowl 10 when you played the Super Bowl.
Ah, true or false, huh?
Yeah,
Now I got a 50-50 chance anyway.
you do.
I'm going to say that's true.
You are absolutely correct. There are scenes where Robert Shaw is running up and down the stands looking to foil the terrorist plot, and they're actually shooting it. And I don't know if it was while the game was going on, or it was during halftime, or it was during pregame, but he's actually running up the stands at the game, which they could never do today with all the security.
Yeah. Yeah, they'd shoot him down immediately.
And if you look real closely in the background, Preston, you can see you making a third down catch.
Thank you, but no, leading up to that game against Pittsburgh was interesting as well. And I've been one of those guys that nobody can break this record either. I've been in 5 Super Bowls, been there with 3 different teams. I'm the first to have done that, been there. There have been others, with one with the Colts against the Jets, one with Pittsburgh against the Vikings, and then 3 with the Dallas Cowboys. Super Bowls are a different animal. The one that I remember most is the first one. And unfortunately, we lost to Joe Namath and the Jets in that game. I was a snot-nosed rookie, not really knowing a whole lot about professional football. I was a basketball player coming into this game. And I remember my first practice where, I finally put on a helmet from as a professional player. And the first thing I go by out there as I'm putting on my helmet are the offensive and defensive linemen going up against one another. And man, if you ever get a chance to go to a practice or a game and be able to get close to the big guys going up against one another, hey, listen, it sounds like rifle shots when these guys hit one another. It scared the hell out of me as a young snot-nosed former basketball player going into his first training camp on the professional level. It scared me. The first Super Bowl for me was against the Jets, and we were supposed to, we as the Baltimore Colts, Johnny Unitas was our quarterback during the regular season, but he had gotten hurt. So Earl Morrall had to be the substitute quarterback going into that game. He played well, but he didn't play well enough so that we could negate what Joe Namath and that powerhouse team that they had back then. But I remember going out there for the first time on kickoff return. I had won the kickoff return award that year. I think I averaged something like 35, 37 yards on the kickoffs, the old kickoff return methods, not this stuff that they have today, but the old way. And I remember standing out there, and it's like a surreal situation. You're standing out there in my with my background and scenario. It's like, wow, I'm in. What am I doing out here? Why am I here? I mean, it's a surreal world. You can't quite catch your breath, but you have to breathe. That's a tough situation to be in. And I was not so much in awe, but being the first time in the Super Bowl, just about to receive the first thing in the game, you can have a tendency to be a little bit nervous, a little bit concerned. I got over it. Unfortunately, we lost that game against a pretty good quarterback at the time, Joe Namath. By the way, I have his autograph.
Now, let me ask you, Preston, you talk about that game. One of the biggest parts of that game was Joe Namath's guarantee that the Jets were going to win. What do you remember about that? And what did you and your teammates think about his guarantee?
Well, it was supposedly a guarantee. Now, I say it that way because I don't really know this as a fact. But back then, players would go out a couple of days before a game and drink, have fun, chase women, whatever it might be. And Joe Willie, New York, Joe Willie's going to be out with his teammates just like we were having fun. My understanding is, and I wasn't there, but my understanding is that Joe and a couple of his teammates and a couple of Colts, my teammates, were at the same bar, and they were just kind of fun basing the whole conversation about, well, if we do this and we do that, we'll be okay. And when somebody reported that Joe Namath said something to this effect, well, if I hit this guy and so runs this way and we do this, I guarantee you we'll win. Well, the newspapers got those last words. I guarantee you we're going to win. That's my understanding. Now, you can always say that's the understanding of the side that lost, right? Mm-hmm. But that's what I understand it to be. Now, knowing Joe, and I say it that way, I should probably call his name outright because I don't know him that well, Joe Namath, he might have said that. He might have said that. And he backed it up. So you got to give him credit.
Yep. Hey, for a guy who never played one down of college football to go on and have a 14-year NFL career, Preston, not too shabby, my friend. I want to thank you for taking us inside that magical 1975 season of the dawning of America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, and sharing those stories only you could tell. We really appreciate your time and your insight. So thank you, Mr. Pearson.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. Nice talking with you. Have a Merry Christmas. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you, Preston.
A true pioneer at the running back position, one of the smartest, most versatile players of the 1970s. What a career. What a storyteller. Preston Pearson on the Past Our Prime podcast. Okay, my Raiders have long been viewed as perennial contenders that just couldn't win the big one. They're also winning this week back in 1970. I guess it would have been 75, but we're talking 76 here. Defeated the Bengals 31-28. Kenny Stabler with 3 touchdown passes. Ted Hendricks dominating on the defense. And the Raiders advanced to take on, Billy?
The Pittsburgh Steelers, who basically dominated the Colts. They held them to just 154 total yards. They got a forced fumble by Jack Ham that Andy Russell turned into a 93-yard touchdown. And the Colts, they were hurt because Burt Jones hurt his arm in the first quarter. He didn't return until the fourth quarter. And his replacement, Marty Domres, well, he went 2 for 11 for 9 yards and 2 interceptions. So, hey, they didn't have backup quarterbacks. Evidently, they were that good back then. But Steelers are great.
Yeah, and the Colts had come into this game winning 9 in a row.
Yep.
They're hot as heck, but they're running into a dynasty.
And you also lose your QB. Doesn't help.
No, the future MVP QB.
Yep.
Mark, what about the Cowboys? Who are they going to face in the NFC Championship?
The LA Rams, and I was sure they were going to get blown out by the Rams. The Rams beat the Cardinals, the St. Louis Cardinals, 35-23. The Rams were really hurt. They were really banged up. And in fact, Lawrence McCutcheon, the star tailback, was really hurt, and there was questions whether he'd be able to play. But he played in the game, and their quarterbacks were hurt, and so they decided our philosophy in this game is we're just going to pound the ball with McCutcheon until his leg falls off. So he ran the ball 37 times in that game for 202 yards. So that's still over 5 yards a carry. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And that was the difference. They beat the Cardinals 35-23, and the Cardinals were a good team that year. So after that game, I said, Cowboys got lucky to beat the Vikings. There's no way they're going to go into LA and beat the Rams. And if you told me the final score would have been 37-7 in that NFC Championship game, I would have said, yeah, the Rams kicked their ass. I would have never thought it was the other way around.
The Cardinals had a good team that year. One of the guys on their team was known as one of the meanest, dirtiest players maybe of all time. I mean, you don't know offensive linemen by name usually back then, but Conrad Dobler, remember him?
Yes.
Yeah. So Merlin Olsen said, somewhere down the line, somebody is going to break his neck and I won't send flowers. And Merlin Olsen was known as one of the nicest guys in all of football. So yeah, Rams win and advance to take on Mark and Bill's Cowboys. All right. Who is kidding whom? The University of San Francisco, USF. The basketball team, 9-2, but wildly inconsistent, relying heavily on 3 talented and yet inexperienced freshmen. One of them, Bill Cartwright, we had on around this time last February, one of our past our prime guests, and went on to have a great NBA career, won at least 3 championships with the Bulls, I believe. So,
and 2 more as a coach, I think.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But they had 2 other guys. Tell me about Winford Boynes, Billy.
Winford Boynes was a great player at USF, but he also proved it in the NBA. He went 13th overall by the Nets, and he would finish his career with 2 years later in Dallas. And why does that matter? Because Winford Boynes will go down in the history books as he led the Mavs in scoring in their first ever game against San Antonio, 21 points.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great night.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of him.
Yeah, I knew that name, and I thought, I know Winford Boynes, yeah. Just to think, yeah, he'll always, no matter what you say about his career, he'll always go, yeah, who led the team in scoring first ever game? Dallas Mavericks? Me. Yeah.
And that third freshman, Mark, he had trouble. That was his nickname, James Hardy.
Yep, James Hardy. He actually ended up getting into the NBA. He was drafted by the New Orleans Jazz right before they moved to Utah. Played a few years in the NBA and then just bounced around all over the place. Anchorage, Northern Knights, Mr. De Siena. I have no idea who that is. Paris Basketball Racing. Just overseas all over the place. And he died of a heart attack in 2020. He was only 64 years old at the time of his death.
Yikes. There goes Mark with his death.
Mark started the show with death, and now he's going back to it.
That's my new nickname, the Green Reaper.
Forget streaking. He's now the death machine.
Of course, USF will always be, especially back then, they weren't that far removed from Bill Russell as a college player when he went to USF, and they were winning national championships. They used to be a powerhouse program, not so much lately, but they did have quite a tradition back in the day. High flyer with a low profile, more college basketball. Eddie Johnson, Auburn's high-scoring, ultra-athletic junior guard. He remains nationally overlooked despite averaging over 20 points a game. But this guy had quite a career in his 4 years at Auburn.
Yeah, he basically all his scoring averages went down each season. He averaged 20.7 as a freshman. By the time he was a senior, he was averaging just below 14 points a game. So whatever happened, maybe he became more of a team player, but weirdly, you don't usually see guys their scoring averages go down every year from like 20 to 17 to 15 to 13.
You usually see the opposite.
Yes. Yes, because you get better, more mature, and you get stronger.
Right. Yeah. Mark, tell us about Eddie. He went on to have quite an NBA career.
Well, he played a long time. He played with the Hawks from 77 to 86, a little with the Cavs, finished his career in 87 with the Sonics. He was a two-time All-Star, actually, 1980 and 81. So he had some good moments in the NBA, but afterwards, I mean, his life was a mess. I mean, he started using cocaine apparently as a college student. In fact, he apparently passed out during a celebratory function at Auburn in 79, okay, which was the tip of the iceberg. In 1980, during the NBA offseason, he escaped unharmed. He jumped off a second-story apartment balcony and fled across a parking lot while two men were firing gunshots at him. Police believe it was part of a drug dispute. 3 weeks later, he was arrested for possession of cocaine while driving a rental car in Atlanta. But the charges were dropped because the search was illegal. He was taken to a private psychiatric facility in Georgia, and he went therapy there. Then he checked himself out, and he was arrested for stealing a car from a car dealer, but the charges were again dropped. He was diagnosed with manic depression. So, I mean, oh my God, his life was just, and the worst was yet to come. And I don't know if I even want to get into what happened to him, but he was convicted of sexual battery of a minor. And I won't even tell you the age of the person. It's just horrific.
I like it better when you just tell me they're dead.
Yeah, so he had a life sentence without parole. He was incarcerated at Santa Rosa. He died in prison in 2020. So he had demons. He definitely had demons.
Obviously.
My goodness.
That's another uplifting one. Mark, what do you want to talk about next? Someone dying?
The famine in Africa. Let's
go with the plague. Yeah. Come on. Boy. Every article we're talking about, Mark's going to go, he murdered 4 people when he was 39.
And he got away with it.
I saw a puppy get run over.
Yeah.
Despite having few athletes, poor facilities, and little public attention, U.S. speed skating remains the nation's strongest Winter Olympic sport, continuing a tradition of producing surprise medals. And entering the 76 games, Sheila Young dominates the trials. She's on the cover of the February 2nd issue of Sports Illustrated, and we've got her coming up as a guest, a future gold medalist. I think that will be our 6th gold medalist that we've had on the show. Wow. So looking forward. We've had 3 summer Olympic, no, I think 4 summer Olympic and only 1 winter. The only winter one we've had is Mike Eruzione. So we got to kind of even up, get some Winter Olympic athletes here. So Sheila Young coming up next month. The Death Valley Hustle, Billy. Wow. I don't know how we even get into this too much, but basically a bizarre Death Valley stunt race between Australian ultra runner Bill Emerton and Bobby Riggs. Yes, the Bobby Riggs, the Billie Jean King Bobby Riggs. Tell me about this.
Yes, he challenges Emerton. He says he can run 25 miles. This is Riggs before Emerton, who is the Tasmanian long distance runner who really knows what he's doing, before he could run 50. So Bobby Riggs gets to run 25. Emerton has to run 50. Their training was just a little bit different. Emerton ran 12 to 15 miles each day in Las Vegas because he had to prepare himself for 50 miles. Riggs, he ran laps on the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, or UNLV's campus, their quarter-mile track, accompanied by girls, young tennis pros, and an entourage of apprentice hustlers under the age of 21. Shockingly enough, at the end, Emerton made the Guinness Book of World Records 4 times. It didn't matter. Bobby Riggs won the race. He finished in 8:10, Emerton 8:51.
Oh,
Wow.
Man,
And Scott, you had said there may be reports that Riggs might have cheated. No guys that are hustlers ever cheat, though. So we know that.
Absolutely not. And you know what's funny is I ran a 5K on Saturday, and I'm 66 years old, and I run once a year. So I ran the whole thing, but I'm not running it very fast. And 2 days later, my thighs are still, that lactic acid is still built up in there, and it's still sore as hell when I sit down and try to get up. So I can only imagine
I don't
running
mean
25 miles in the desert.
I don't mean this in a nagging way whatsoever, but like, shouldn't you run a little bit to prep for that, even though it's only 3.1 miles? But that's
that's dangerous.
Good. That's not good for your legs.
It's not good for your body if you're not used to doing it.
Well, but I walk all the time, and frankly,
Different.
I'm not.
Different
It's really
movement.
funny. So I was running with Caitlin, and so I basically am like the tortoise, and the tortoise in the hare. I've got a slow pace, but a constant run. I don't stop. She will sprint and then walk, sprint and then walk, like she's training for an NBA season.
That's what I do.
Yeah, and so basically, when I pass her when she's walking, but then she starts sprinting and she passes right by me. So it's a little tortoise in the hare thing.
Yeah.
Mark, still impressive that you did that, but
Yeah,
Impressive.
absolutely.
I love that.
Though my time was 5 minutes slower than 2.5 years ago, so I'm very.
So what's your time now?
Like 39 minutes. I ran at 34 2.5 years ago. So
Not bad. That's not bad, man.
College football, Nebraska pays for a fiesta. Arizona State stuns Nebraska 17-14 using an unpredictable, aggressive game plan. Mark, Nebraska picked ASU as an opponent. Kind of backfired.
Well, first of all, I don't care who your opponent is. The Fiesta Bowl is played where? Tempe, Arizona. Where is Arizona State located? Tempe, Arizona. You don't play a team on their home field, okay? Anything can happen. So Nebraska got what they deserved. Awesome. And I apologize to my friends that went to Nebraska that listened to the podcast.
I don't.
Well, just think, think about it. What a different world that Arizona State at that time was a major player in college football.
Yeah.
And nowadays, not saying last year withstanding, they're just not really in the thick of things anymore.
I don't know. Dillingham's got those wild.
No, he does. He does. But I'm saying last year with Scattaboo, they were on the everywhere in terms of knowing who they were. But now, not as much.
What about Ricky Bell, Billy?
Oh, in the Liberty Bowl, he ran for 82 yards and 28 carries versus Texas A&M. He then passed O.J. Simpson as USC's single-season rushing leader with 1,957 yards.
Oh, I gotta think that they were thinking he had a 2,000-yard season in him going into that game, but 82 yards on 28 carries. That's A&M kind of stopped him a little bit, but I think
that was their game plan.
SC blanked them, right?
Yes, they did. 20-0. Yeah, 20-0.
All right, that gets us to For the Record.
Oh, you forgot about my guy.
Oh, I forgot about Mark's guy. Who?
You forgot about two guys. I had a story about UNLV basketball, which I'm not going to share now because I'm hurt. But I will share the real quick For the Record guy, which is Bruce Snyder getting hired at Utah State as their football coach. And you go, well,
I just said
we never even went to For the Record.
What?
He said Scott was moving on to that, and you stopped him and said,
"Oh, okay, I'm an idiot. I thought you were going from For the Record to Faces."
No,
so
you're in college football.
You know
Why
what?
don't you go back to reading the obituary and
you know what Caitlin and Mark tell me?
Keep pushing
They're
the
really
keys
worried
on your
about me. They
keyboard.
think I'm losing brain cells, and they might be right.
Yeah. No, I want to go back and do a story on Youngstown State.
You ready for us to do For the Record?
Forget it. I'm upset now.
Who are you two guys? What are you doing on my computer?
All right, I guess we'll do it. Mark, Bruce Snyder.
No, I don't want to tell this story. Anyway, Bruce gets hired by Utah State. He'd been assistant coach at USC under John McKay. Anyway, he coached Utah State from 76 to 82. Then he went and was an assistant coach with the Rams for 3 seasons. Then he became the head coach at Cal. And then he became the head coach at Arizona State.
Yeah.
So long career in college football. And I always remember him at Cal and Arizona State.
Absolutely. Yeah. Billy, Tell me about Dick Nolan.
Well, Dick Nolan, and this is just for a father-son type deal. Dick Nolan was the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. I said was because they fired him. In 8 years, he won 3 division titles, but he followed by 3 losing seasons, so they dumped him. But about 20 plus years later, his son Mike coached the Niners for 3-4 years.
Who knew?
Yeah, to me, I look at that and think, because you always want, I think, I don't have a son, but maybe you want them to follow in your footsteps. But just to think, getting a coaching job or a head coaching job in any of these major sports, that's needle and haystack stuff. And to figure that your dad got to do it and you followed in his footsteps, his son Mike.
Very cool. ABA, the Denver crowd was a record 17,298. They came out to see 2 of the league's best teams, David Thompson and the Nuggets, against Julius Erving and the Nets. The Doctor became the 10th man in league history to score 10,000 points in a loss to the Nuggets. But get this, a record crowd in Denver, and the Nuggets, 50 years later, they're still in Denver. Meanwhile, less than 1,000 people in St. Louis. The Spirits leave St. Louis, and no basketball team has played there in 50 years. So we wonder sometimes how the NBA chose, and got to be that they were like, look, this market supports a basketball team, this one doesn't.
The Spirits are a wonderful name, too.
Faces in the crowd, Billy.
I'm going to go with Bob Rohrbach. He's a junior forward on the University of Dayton soccer team. He scored 31 goals. His 69 goals is still a school record, but he went on to play pro, and he actually was on the team with Pelé in 1977 with the New York Cosmos. He didn't get to see any first team action, but he still actually got to play and practice with him. He would actually go on to score 10 goals in the NASL. But unfortunately, when he played for the Columbus Magic, he collided head on with a player from the Cleveland Cobras. That put him in a coma for 4 days, and incredibly enough, ended his soccer career.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yep.
And then Mark, he died shortly after that.
Now, I'm going to go the opposite way here. I'm going to talk about death, but it's a more pleasant one. Maxine Merlino, she's 63 years old. She's a retired dean of fine arts at Cal State Long Beach. She set her 12th national age group swimming mark. She broke the 400-yard individual medley record. So, I mean, this is an athlete. Though the picture, she looks older than 63, but she's a credible athlete. But here's the remarkable thing about Maxine. Maxine, you know how old Maxine lived to be? She lived to be 101 years old.
Oh, wow.
She didn't die till 2013 in Madrid, Spain. That's incredible.
It is.
One thing women like is when you look at their picture, Mark, and you go, she looks a lot older than
I know. I thought after I said that, she'd go to me, well, you don't look too good yourself.
Hey, Maxine, you look really old.
Well, take a look at her picture and tell me she doesn't look older than 63.
Well, but back in those days, Mark, we've looked at that. Remember there was like a bowling one, and the guys were in their 50s. That looked like they're in their 90s.
Like Sparky, there's a picture of like Sparky Anderson and Dick Williams from the 72 World Series. They both look like 80.
My favorite one, there was some show on from the 50s or 60s, and they go, I can't believe so-and-so is getting married to that guy. He's so old. He's 55. And the actor who plays the 55-year-old's got like white hair and he's wrinkly, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. So come on, age is much different in terms of the.
Well, she was obviously in great shape, man.
Maxime was inducted into the International Swimmers Hall of Fame, and get this: Cal State Long Beach named the Dr. Maxine Merlino Gallery in her honor. Her papers are preserved in the Smithsonian. So.
Yep.
But just think, if you went to Long Beach State, went up there, you would know Maxine now. You go, we talked about her. That's good stuff.
For sure.
Right. Well, I'm probably not allowed on campus now after that comment about her.
I know.
Yeah.
Scott's
I apologize to her whole family. Okay, she looks great.
Yeah, that's a backhanded compliment.
I'm such dead meat now.
You don't look good, Maxine. Then you go, yeah, she looks pretty good.
I just said she looked older. I didn't say she didn't look good.
Most women. Okay, Mark, find one woman that you know today and go, man, you look older than I thought. And see how much they go, oh, thank you, Mark.
Follow that up with, you put on a little bit.
You look so much fuller. You look healthier.
Is that baby weight or are you just huge?
Congratulations on the pregnancy. What pregnancy?
You're not shoveling snow, are you?
You need to shovel snow, Tubby.
You know what? There's probably about 10 female listeners who just said, that guy's an ass.
Oh, well, that's fewer
That's
than
10 more
normal.
listeners than we have.
Oh. Hey, Bill, someone is ticked off at Big George Foreman.
Yeah, I think Ricky Wyatt got hit on the head. He said, while I respect George Foreman as a fighter, I found his story a waste of paper. Let's see his fists do the talking against such top contenders as Ron Lyle, Joe Bugner, Joe Frazier, and Ken Norton. Well, just to update, Foreman finished 4-0 versus the 3 of the 4. He never fought Joe Bugner. And at the time that he sent this note, Foreman had already beaten Frazier and Norton and would beat Lyle later this month and Frazier again in June. Come on, man. Do your research before you send in a dumb letter.
We talked a lot about Big George with Jim Lampley a couple weeks ago, one of the best shows we did last year. I got one from Richard Traub from Savannah, Georgia. Pete Rose won the 1975 Sportsman of the Year, but not everyone was happy about that because he says, I am returning your Sportsman of the Year cover because the picture is the worst likeness of Fred Lynn that I have ever seen. Someone who thought Freddie Lynn should have been the Sportsman of the Year in 1975. We didn't even mention him. It was Rose over OJ and the Golden Bear, Jack Nicklaus. So, anything else, guys?
No,
Mark,
I think I've done enough
Mark, anyone else dying?
Mark, you want to talk about Jerry Tarkanian? He's dead.
You know what? I think I've done enough damage. I've ruined my reputation. No one will like me anymore.
Hold on. Mark, wait a sec. Hi, Jane. Oh, it's Maxine's daughter.
Maxine's daughter is 85 years old.
She is. And
She's
says,
going,
my
"That
mom's
asshole."
hot now.
But she looks older.
She does.
Well, you know what? When you swim a lot, you're out in the sun more, so you
Oh,
tend
yeah.
to, you know.
Mark, don't try to
Okay.
cover.
All right.
Don't try to cover.
Dig yourself deeper. Hey,
Yeah.
that's going to wrap up our first show of 76 here in 2026.
And maybe my last.
Big thanks to Preston Pearson for stopping by, and thanks to all of you for hanging out with us as we dig back through the pages of Sports Illustrated. For Bill and Mark, I'm Scott Johnson. This is Past Our Prime. See you next time.